Gotten awfully quiet the last couple days on the quarterback front. Believe me, doesn't mean Miami's not still working. And folks, this is National Signing Week. It's about to get crazy.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, if there is such a thing. I am Alex Donno, your host. I'm a University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. Miami versus Florida State for Cam Ward, continuing into this week. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We are available free wherever you get your podcasts, and we're available free on YouTube. No better way to kick off National Signing Week than we're going to be talking in a second with our recruiting overlord. And yes, every time Brian Smith joins us, he is brought to you by the great folks at LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. So we have our transfer portal consigliere and our recruiting overlord, Brian Smith, is with us. Now, Brian, I want to get into this Miami versus Florida State battle for Cam Ward. I know a lot of Hurricanes fans, and probably a lot of Seminole fans are like disappointed that he hasn't made a decision yet. I'm not surprised because after his Florida State visit, Ward's father said he's going to be taking some time back home in Texas. He was fishing all day yesterday. Today's Monday. Today was the day that Ward really plans on kind of talking with his parents more about his decision. I hope the decision comes in the next couple days. But since you also cover Florida State very closely, I'd love to know, Brian, on that end, how does Florida State feel about this pursuit? Because they also just had DJ Uyunglele on campus visiting. And I know Miami fans are like, I hope Florida State announces DJ so they can, push Ward closer to Miami. Do they have DJ kind of in a holding pattern waiting for Ward?
Well, based on the questions that DJ's been given, and he actually answered, which was shocking, he said he doesn't have any time frame. That tells me that, that we're all just going to be in the dark, which is what nobody wants. When he said that, I'm like, oh, so it's truly just what Cam does and then the dominoes fall. I wish I knew more than that, but I mean, I don't know Cam, and nobody's going to get to him for an interview. Let's be honest. Yeah. This isn't like recruiting where I can show up at a 7-on-7 and interview a kid.
Right.
So, unfortunately, with signing day coming up, both schools are like, hey, but if you push him too hard, you can tick him off. Both schools do not have any leverage here. So it's all in Cam Ward's court, man.
That's a good point. And, with other targets, I don't know. A guy that I was interested in, I don't know if Miami was that interested in Daquan Finn from Toledo. I liked him a lot. He's going to Baylor, so he's coming off the board. Now, another one, Brian, people are still kind of expecting Will Howard to commit to USC. It hasn't happened yet. Now, Gary Furman from Kane Sport posted last night that despite the crystal balls, that this is something Miami is still working on. So I hope that's true, because at the same time, I read the tea leaves here. So that USC has a 5-star quarterback who is going to head into his second year, Malachi Nelson, who's hitting the transfer portal. I'm thinking maybe Nelson's hitting the transfer portal because he wanted to start next year. He thinks they're bringing Will Howard in.
I read it the same way. I'm guessing that they're trying to strategically place when the kid commits. Because why would Malachi jump in now? Like, he's super, super talented, highly coveted, one of the top 5 quarterbacks. I would be very surprised if he didn't already know something, because why else would he jump in right now?
Yeah.
So I would say that Miami, we're almost to the boom or bust with Cam Ward's situation on the portal.
Yeah.
I mean, they have, but that's why this is very nerve-wracking, because I'm like, I just want somebody to make a decision here.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of hitting refresh. So don't tell me that you haven't done it too. Don't tell me.
I'm doing it. Yeah. I think my phone is like about to just, I don't know if like refreshing my X feed every 3 seconds is going to like mess up my app or something. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. Okay. So let me ask you, and this is purely opinion. Okay.
Sure.
Do you have a prediction on where Ward is going to end up? And that may include the NFL. I kind of feel like they're using the NFL as kind of a bluff to try to get, a better offer from Miami and Florida State. But Ward's father does still bring up, hey, the NFL is an option and we're waiting for his final sort of draft grade. What do you think ends up happening here?
I think that is part of it. I talked to somebody yesterday. I'd heard what Miami was trying to go with, and my friend said that may not be enough. And I think Miami's offer is very considerable. And I'm like, okay, if that's the case, then.
And probably higher than Florida State's offer, right?
I would imagine so. The Battle's End is the name of the organization that is the NIL collective for the Noles. I don't think it's anywhere near what Miami's is. But, I mean, if you pony up for one guy, your problem is, well, what do you do with the rest of the roster? Like, there's so many things. That's a podcast we'll have after all the kids have figured out the draft and all that sometime in January. But it is awkward. It's not whether you can pay for them. It's whether you can pay for them and not tick off your roster. That's the real question.
Yeah.
Because like Florida State's got some guys that aren't real happy that are leaving. They probably are getting some bad advice. I'm just going to leave that alone. But every school is going to have that now. And I'm starting to think you're going to see the numbers actually go down for the portal because people aren't going to put up with the roster issues. It's awkward, but this has not worked out the way I think a lot of people thought it would.
So, Miami fans are kind of just having to wait this long for Ward and worried that Will Howard's going to USC. People are bringing up other options, and DA down there, thank you so much. He asked, what about KJ Jefferson from Arkansas, who hit the portal within the last couple of days? Now, Brian, to this point, I have not been able to verify Miami interest in KJ, but I'm kind of interested.
I am too.
What do you think?
I mean, worst case scenario, the dude was in football in 2019. He's been in the SEC since 2009. There's no way you can't at least consider it on the back end. Now, whether or not they've already made contact and how all that works, I don't know. I would assume so.
Right.
But there's like no smoke on where he's going. Originally, it was South Carolina, but then everything just went cold, totally silent. I don't know why. Yeah. Because, again, he's got like over 7,000 yards passing, blah, blah, blah. And he's a horse. 250 coming downhill at you is not a good time. So maybe he ends up in another SEC school, but Miami, Florida State, it could be anywhere. It could still be South Carolina. I don't know.
By the way, it doesn't seem to me like Miami has much of any interest in DJ Uyunglele, but should they, Brian? Because listen, DJ, obviously he seems pretty keen on Florida State. If Florida State can get Cam Ward, that obviously takes away his Florida State option. Should Miami be looking also at DJ as a backup plan?
I think every team should look at those kind of circumstances. I know fans, they kind of go like, well, he's not the 5-star guy. Look, you're not always going to get the number one. That's just reality. If you want to bridge gap to Emory this next year, which I think would be good for all parties involved, Miami needs an experienced quarterback next year.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're going 13-0 and then going into the college football. Look, this is a process, but having him also, like Miami's depth chart of quarterback is iffy. They just don't have a lot of numbers. You got to get somebody experienced. Come hell, come high water. If it's not Ward, it's not DJ. Who's it going to be? Finn's not there anymore. Right. I would say it's probably not looking so great for Howard. I mean, there's a reason Malachi just hopped in the portal. Who the heck you getting? Yeah. So again, it's unfortunate with Ward that he's taken a while, but they have 100% leverage, man. They do.
Yeah. And by the way, I agree with you on obviously wanting an experienced guy for next year, but names of young quarterbacks do come up a lot among Miami fans, and it seems like every young quarterback is getting the hell out of Los Angeles right now. I mean, Dante Moore is leaving UCLA. Now Malachi Nelson, who's another former 5-star, he's leaving USC. Can you tell me, because I kept better tabs on Moore when he was in high school than I did on Malachi Nelson. How do you compare Nelson to Dante Moore? Who did you like better coming out of high school?
I have Dante as the number one player in the country because A, the quarterback, B, uber intelligent, 4.0 kid, and he can throw to the middle of the field and make those pinpoint passes. Now, it's still harder in college, and he struggled some at UCLA, but I don't think their system is perfect for him by any means. In a traditional pro-style offense, more like what you would think of Miami in the 80s and 90s, he would light it up somewhere.
Yeah.
The problem with bringing him in, whether it's Miami or otherwise, any other young quarterback is going to leave. Again, it's not who you get, it's who you lose in conjunction with it. How you get there, the NIL that there's no way around it. Dante's dad wants money. So a lot of it. You got to be real careful here, man. Sometimes less is more. If you're going to lose 3 kids because you gain 1 and your locker room's screwed up, and by the way, Dante's a great guy. He's a great guy. Is that a good thing? I mean, Malachi, I don't know as well, but he's one of those kids in the same form of the quarterback they just lost, Mr. Williams. They can get outside the pocket, make some really weird throws, and you're like, how in the world did he do that? He's just thin. He needs to add some weight. Very good athlete. But again, I mean, I don't, why is he leaving? I'm thinking it's Howard's going to go to SC. These transfers, man, they can make the quarterback rooms really spin. And what if Howard gets hurt next year at Southern Cal in game 3 and he misses 5 games with a sprained ankle? Who the hell is your quarterback? You're going to have like one guy. Yeah. So that guy better be ready. It's really, really hard.
I can say this, guys. We're only getting started on this episode of Locked On Canes, and we are live, by the way. If you're watching us right now, 9:43 a.m. Eastern Time, make sure you're participating in the live chat. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're listening back to the audio version, make sure to hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, Google, wherever you get your pods, and rate us 5 stars. We're going to continue here talking with our recruiting expert, Brian Smith. He's also my colleague at allhurricanes.com. We're going to talk recruiting, right? We talk about the big 4 that Miami's trying to flip, okay? And Armondo Blount, Adarius Hayes, Jordan Lyle, Xavier Lucas. We're also wondering if Miami might lose a flip in the form of Kevin Riley. I have the latest comments, by the way, from Kevin Riley's visit to Alabama. We can talk about that. And I also want to talk about a still uncommitted defensive back in Zay Mincy. It seems to be a Miami versus Florida battle for him, but we're not going to find anything about him out decision-wise for a while. We'll tell you what we're talking about when we come back. We are only getting started right here on this episode of Locked On Canes. I'm only getting started with eBay Motors. Guys, passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We are live with our recruiting guru and our transfer portal consigliere, Brian Smith, is with us. And guys, make sure after you make Locked On Canes your first watch today and your first listen, you check out Locked On Sports Today. This network has the first ever 24/7 streaming sports YouTube channel. Check out Locked On Sports Today. Like Mario Cristobal, they never sleep at Locked On Sports Today. And speaking on that, Brian, Miami is going for 4 flips this week. I'll give you my confidence level on these 4. I'm very confident in Armondo Blount flipping back to Miami from Florida State this week. I'm pretty darn confident on Jordan Lyle flipping to Miami from Ohio State. Would be the second straight year Miami takes a running back out of Ohio State's class. They did it with Mark Fletcher, which worked out very nicely for Miami. They're going to try to do it again with Lyle. I'm getting more confident by the day on Adarius Hayes out of Largo, who's committed to Florida, who came down and visited. I'm a little less confident on Xavier Lucas, the heritage defensive back who is committed to Wisconsin. Miami's been chipping away at him for a long time. They got him down for an official visit. So I gave you my 4 there in order of confidence. What are you hearing on those 4, and how many flips do you think Miami may be able to pull off there by signing day?
I think you're on the money. Blunt's the most likely. Lyle is interesting, but it's connected to Kevin Riley. And anytime a kid is being recruited by Bama, I'm always nervous. When the kid lives 15 miles from Bama's campus, I'm not sure I can put a number on how concerned I would be if he takes a visit, especially right before national signing.
Yeah.
Look, I haven't read any reports. I haven't looked into it. I just assumed when he took the visit, he's going to Bama. I mean, like just flat out, my lifetime, Bama is notorious for this, getting the last minute flips for in-state kids. The pull is really hard, man. I spend a lot of time in that state. You cannot put into perspective how much love there is for that. It's not possible. So he's getting pressured. I would say that the Mincy thing is interesting. That's the quietest thing in the world. You have the opportunity with Xavier Lucas. Those guys are like the ones I'm trying to find out stuff, and it is really quiet. So
right.
Blount, though, I think is the most likely, and that's a huge deal because kind of like Ruben, he's a kid you can play in different spots. So I think that's the key here. You can never have enough defensive linemen. I think Miami's in a pretty good spot, though.
You know, I've been thinking about this the last couple days. We all saw what Ruben Bain just did this past season, right? ACC defensive rookie of the year. One of the better defensive linemen in the country, regardless of what class he was in. And then the crazy thing about it is Armondo Blount is a higher ranked recruit than Ruben Bain was last year. Now, we all thought, I was still puzzled to this day how Ruben Bain wasn't considered a 5-star last year. Armondo Blount is a 5-star. So it's like, how do you compare them as prospects coming out of Miami Central?
The biggest problem with the recruiting industry now, I'll just let everybody on this secret, they're trying to model everything like the NFL does. The rankings, some of these places, the rankings, they want it to eventually match how the draft goes, which is ignorant. That's number one. And Bain doesn't have the ideal height. He's about 6'1.5". So he is the unusual guy that just makes a gazillion plays. Well, I'll take that. Mario Cristobal and the Kings, Alabama, Florida State, all these schools wanted him a lot more than what the recruiting rankings did. I laughed about it.
Yeah.
Bluestein and I were like, how in the hell is he not a 5-star? I mean, we talked about it a number of times. But anyway, he was a 5-star for me. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
The deal with Blount is his size is what the NFL looks at, and the 247s of the world, et cetera, will look at it the same. He's 6'3" or so. He's 250 plus already, and he's got a frame to weigh 280 if you want. He could be a 3-tech, a strong side end. He fits all those measurables. That's the key word, better than what Bain did. So for whatever it's worth, that's what it is. But I think he's probably a little bit more developed in height and all that, and that's great. But Bain's moves were as good as any high school guy I've ever seen. And I'm not saying that Armondo doesn't have them, but coming out of high school, I honestly think Ruben is as good, if not better. And he's a year ahead in terms of when he's leaving for Miami, too. That's really important.
Oh. Hey, sorry. This is one of those things that can happen when you're live streaming. My internet was kind of crapping out. Am I back, Brian? Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
Thank God. Because at first I'm like freaking out. Is it Brian? Is it me? I'm like the Spider-Man meme. I'm like looking at myself. But we are back. All right. So an uncommitted player, Brian. I mentioned it in the tease leading into this segment. Zay Mincy, who seems to be a Miami versus Florida battle for him. What do you think is going on there for the mainland Daytona Beach defensive back?
I think his number one concern is which coach or coaches are actually going to be in Gainesville. Like that staff may have more turbulence after signing day. I don't know how you handle that if you're a recruit because, as you know, portal, NIL, National Signing Day, and coaching changes all happen at the same time in December. If you're going to sign, in December, the coach that you think you're going to play for may not be there in January. And they already lost their DB coach, the guy that was recruiting him forever. I don't know how you pick Florida because, but at the same time, I think that's where he wanted to go in some way. So it's like, it's wild. I don't know how that goes because I would feel very uncomfortable advising him as a member of the mainland coaching staff or whatever, going to a school where you don't know your DB coach the same way you did at another school.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion, but I haven't talked to Mincy in quite a while.
Wow. Okay. Well, I want to share the latest on Kevin Riley's situation. He's a 4-star running back. And like Brian mentioned, he's from 15 minutes away from Alabama's campus. He's been committed to Miami for several months, but he just took a visit to the Crimson Tide. So we will share the latest with you guys. If you're here watching us live, keep smashing that like button. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Canes on YouTube. If you're listening to the audio version, make sure you subscribe. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your pods. Rate us 5 stars. We're not done yet, my friends. We will be back right here on Locked On Canes. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. And thank you to the everydayers. And by the way, if you want to take your everydayer experience to the next level, make sure you subscribe to our exclusive SMS texting service, Locked On Canes Insiders. This is a good week for that because we're tracking the quarterback situation. We've already spoken on this episode about the Cam Ward saga, about Will Howard trending to USC, but he's not quite committed to USC just yet. Miami versus Florida State for Cam Ward. We will be talking about recruiting flips, National Signing Day all throughout the week. So click the link in the show description below to become a Locked On Canes Insider. You can try it free for 14 days. You get text messages directly from my phone to your phone. And then after 14 days, if you like it, you can opt in for $4.99 a month. We give you a lot of added value on there. And this is probably a good week to take advantage because I think, Brian, you're the same way. Most of my day is just spent reading up and asking people what's the latest on these recruits and these transfers. I don't really take a break from it. And when I hear something, I update the insiders. That's how I spend most of my day.
I don't know anything else. I don't know what most. That's all I do. It's 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. right now, brother. That's just the way it is. So it's fun, but yeah, it's pretty taxing. I think that there's going to be a few things that'll surprise some people in the next 48 hours, but Miami's going to have a very good National Signing Day.
Yeah, and somebody was asking us in the chat how many we expect to be in Miami's class. I'm expecting about 30, Brian, because I think Miami's going to lose. Miami may lose a few more players. You know, the running back we're going to talk about could be one of those, but obviously they're going to gain a few flips the next couple days. So I think they're going to end up with about 30 in the class, which would be, you know, I remember they used to cap these things at 25. They don't cap them at 25 anymore. 30 is a pretty gigantic class if they get that.
Because of the portal, one of the few things the NCAA has figured out, and Ward only knows they were due for a win, is they took that away because so many kids are entering the portal. Some schools just get obliterated.
Yeah.
I mean, if you only take 25, you're going into the season with like 70, 75 guys unless you just kill it in the portal. I mean, it's just – so they're trying to keep people from just using portal and getting high school kids. So, but Mario is not being stupid either. He's taking advantage of the opportunity to build his roster through the high school ranks.
Yeah. And so, all right, Kevin Riley visited Tuscaloosa, visited Alabama this past weekend. And I understand like they really rolled out the red carpet for him. And, you know, some of the rumors I can't even talk about, but they really want to flip him badly. And Brian outlined it's a very tough decision. I mean, you play football in the state of Alabama and the Crimson Tide wants you. It's very difficult to say no. He's not made a decision yet. You know, Riley told, I was reading this on a Bama recruiting site this morning. Riley said after his visit that, yeah, he's leaning to the Tide right now after that great visit. But he said it doesn't necessarily mean I'm flipping. He's going to continue to think about it, talk to family about it for the next couple of days. So obviously, from a Miami standpoint, we are bracing ourselves to possibly lose this player. But I just want to let people know it's not a done deal yet. We're going to find out on signing day.
Unfortunately, this is the kind of the nature of it. My guess is he won't announce anything and there won't be anything else coming out. That'll be the last interview. And then he'll put on a hat on Wednesday. That's usually kind of how this works. This is pretty traditional. I wouldn't touch that one with a 10-foot pole, but would you want to be in that kid's shoes? I mean, if he doesn't pick Alabama, holy cow, you know, can he go to the mailbox? You know, it's going to be tough. But Miami got him to commit in the first place. It was one of the biggest shockers to me in this entire cycle, regardless of class, to get him in the first place. So hats off to Miami.
I'll throw this hypothetical at you from Anthony. If you guys had a choice between Malachi, I think he means Malachi Nelson, and Malik Murphy from Texas, who would you choose to bring in? With Cam. Wow. So Anthony, you're getting real greedy. So you're saying we're getting Cam Ward and we're getting one of these other guys. I'll just say between Malachi Nelson, who is entered the transfer portal from USC, former 5-star, and Malik Murphy, who's in the transfer portal from Texas, who would you prefer out of those two?
I would take Malik Murphy because he's got a bigger frame.
Yeah.
I think he's just more likely to take the pounding that is everyday college football. Malachi's a really good athlete, but he's built more like a 2-guard or a point guard. And while those guys make a lot of people miss, it only takes one big smack and then they're out for 6 weeks. So I would go Murphy.
All right. Now, I can't possibly, finish asking you recruiting questions without asking you about Jeremiah Smith, because we're finally going to get an answer, because he is planning to sign on Wednesday. He's not going. I don't think he's going to pull a Cormani McLean and drag it out into an extra month or two like Cormani did last year. Yeah. So at Florida State, for a while, Florida State was feeling pretty good about flipping Jeremiah. You're always going to hear these rumblings like, hey, don't rule Miami out. Hometown team, a couple of his friends and teammates are committed to Miami. Do you think Wednesday, is he going to sign with Ohio State, or is there going to be a surprise?
I think part of that is going to be connected with what's going on with Ohio State. I've said this last week. Who is their quarterback?
I don't know.
In fairness to Jeremiah, and I'm biased here, I know the kid. I wouldn't want him. You're tied to that quarterback, fair or not.
Yeah.
If you're going to drag yourself all the way up to Central Ohio. Do you even know? Who are they even pursuing?
It seemed like they were going to pursue Ward, but then Ward never got there, never got around to there.
At this point, I'm really nervous from Ohio State perspective, just looking at playing devil's advocate. Like, what are we doing here? Yeah. Is there something I don't know about? I thought Malik Murphy maybe would be he'd be a fit, and they got some younger guys that are good too, but none of that is proven.
No.
If you're Jeremiah, man, that's got to make you nervous. So the Cam Ward thing might be the reason he picked school A or B, meaning the in-state school. But Ohio State, I would say, is a lesser chance now than I didn't think this. I don't know if they're even a 50% chance now. Because if I'm him, and I'm just looking at it from my perspective, who the heck is getting me the football? Because he's going to go in there and play. I don't normally say this about freshmen. He's not a normal kid, man. That's right. He's very mature. He's been trained forever. He's as motivated as it gets. He's just quiet, but he dominates with a smile. You know what I mean? That's his trash talk. He knows he's going to go in there and play, but if you can't get him the ball, I don't know. I think it's just as good a chance he goes to Florida State or Miami at this point, because one of them is going to get Ward. If Ward announces for one of those two schools today or tomorrow, that could be where Jeremiah goes.
Wow. Oh man.
Would you blame him?
No, I wouldn't blame him. I wouldn't blame him. And this just goes, this is making people even more nervous about what happens with Cam Ward. Ward.
This is why we talked about that last week.
Yeah.
This has got a domino effect with the receiver too.
Do you think Ward is really going to wait possibly another week to decide? Because Brian, he's also got to feel some pressure, right? Because at a certain point, if he likes Miami and Florida State, I don't know if they can wait till Christmas Day for him. So at some point, he's got to feel some pressure.
The only thing I will say to that is this: announcing to you and me in the public is one thing. Calling a recruit and saying, I'm going to school X, just so you know, and I'm going to have my own announcement to maximize, is quite another. Okay. That would be my guess. Yeah. If he doesn't announce today or tomorrow, that's going to be, in my opinion. If he's just truly writing it out, he's putting himself in a bad spot. Would you rather have Jeremiah Smith on your roster or not?
I'll take him.
Yeah. I would think he would call Jeremiah, and any recruit for that matter, and have some kind of conversation. Like, look, I'm going to sign on X, but just so you know, this is where I'm going.
Good stuff as always here, Brian Smith. You want to follow him on X at FBScout_Florida. Check out his work along with mine at allhurricanes.com. And I will be, I'll be publishing some stuff from this episode later at All Hurricanes. And I'm going to take another deep dive into what Mario Cristobal said on the radio this morning. I was listening to Cristobal and Joe Rose this morning. He said, obviously, Miami's not done yet, grabbing players before National Signing Day, as you would expect. Talked about Jakari Brown looking good, preparing for the bowl game, because remember, Jakari is going to be starting against Rutgers at the Pinstripe Bowl. So there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out at allhurricanes.com later today. Make sure you keep it locked there. Brian, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your busy week.
Thank you very much, and enjoy the recruiting stuff, man. It's going to be fun.
I sure will. We'll talk to you guys again next time, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. Another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.